Hello everyone, welcome back to just another F1 podcast here on Apex Motorsport. My name is Richard Smyth and we've just had the Russian Grand Prix, and by Russian Grand Prix standards it was a rather interesting race and rather interesting weekend indeed. And joining me today to discuss it all is of course our accredited Formula One photographer Craig Evans. Craig, thanks for coming back onto the podcast, and well, I'm not going to throw you in the spot this time because you should expect this coming. 3 words to describe the Russian Grand Prix.
I mean, it still puts me on the spot every week.
Yeah, you should know by now.
I think we're going to go for totally not Sochi.
Yeah.
Because it was actually entertaining.
It was. Obviously, we have one more year at Sochi, so if next year can be as good, Brian will definitely be very happy. We all know Brian's love for Sochi.
A rather bizarre love, that one.
Yes. And
this year paid off, though.
Yes, yeah, and it hasn't been quiet about that since, so yeah. I think we'll start our usual podcast with our F1 Higher or Lower, the game where we try to come up with the most bizarre questions to catch each other out. Craig, as the guest, first or second this time?
I'll go second this time.
So I do this every time. Is it me asking you or you asking me?
You can ask me first.
Okay.
Fire away.
Okay. So as you know, Lewis Hamilton claimed his 100th Grand Prix victory at Sochi, and his first win coming back in Canada 2007. But his first British Grand Prix win came in 2008. But was his winning margin at Silverstone higher or lower than 53.274 seconds to Sochi?
Now I can answer this with confidence because, as you said, we've both got exactly the same question.
No.
Yep.
Okay.
Literally exactly the same question.
I did just say before we
I'm
started
going to go
recording,
higher anyway.
Yeah, and if you've the same question, I'm going to guess it was about 1 minute, 8.577 seconds.
Correct. Yes,
Yes.
bang on. There we go.
There we go.
A point each.
Yeah.
I can't believe you said that just before we started recording.
Just before we started recording, I said it's going to be a day where we both have the same question. I didn't think it would be so soon.
Well, there we go then.
Well, it looks like we're going to have to actually discuss this race and not draw out this section any longer. Well, we'll start off. Well, obviously, practice. Not too much happened on Friday.
It was very, very wet.
Yes.
And we didn't have an FP3.
Yes. Giovinazzi had a big enough crash. But yeah, we'll move on to qualifying pretty quickly because obviously we didn't have that FP3 session. And, well, it was a very interesting qualifying session. There's one point that I didn't think we were even going to get any running. We were just about to leave the house. We didn't expect there to be any run, and then all of a sudden the cars leave the pit lane, and well, we have a brilliant...
Classic F1, really.
Yeah.
Everyone talking about it being washed out for the weekend, and then the pole time was set on slicks.
Whoa! Hold on there. Before Richard and Craig start going on about how good of a weekend it was in Sochi, let's just not forget, hello, it is Ryan, the guy who loves Sochi. I would just like to mention that, as you know, this is one of my favourite circuits for some reason. Nobody else seems to understand that. But anyway, I just wanted to say, I've always called it a good circuit, and this weekend really proved that. It was quite surprising, well, for most people anyway. It had everything, from Norris on pole, George Russell in P3. That was qualifying. Qualifying was actually quite good. And then we moved on to the race. The race was quite something else. We had Lando defending against Carlos Sainz. And, I thought, what is going on? No way have I actually predicted something right for once, which seems to be a common theme with the podcast, where I don't seem to get anything right in my predictions. But anyway, I guess at the end of the day I was right, so enjoy listening to the rest of the podcast with Richard and Craig. On to you guys.
It was a brilliant qualifying session, and we've seen Mr. Lando Norris claim pole position, his first of his career. What do you make of his weekend up to that point, from what you've seen in practice and obviously his qualifying lap?
It kind of came from nowhere because Merck looked to have it pretty covered off. They obviously had Hamilton up there, they had Bottas up there. Max, for some reason, was allowed to start even though he hadn't set of time, but then it was wet, so that's the leeway in the rules there. Yeah, it was cracking from Norris because I can remember we were all watching it in the house, and then Norris, because Hamilton set the lap. Hamilton was nowhere that second run in Q3. And then Norris comes along, pole. Russell comes along, third.
Yeah.
Madness.
I didn't expect Russell to be up as high.
No.
Especially when he done a few laps and it was 5-6 seconds off the pace at one point, and then he goes and just jumps to third. And
well, at least in Spa, we saw the pace from the Williams
Yeah.
in the wet. This came from nowhere.
especially when Latifi, he got into Q2, so Williams have made some really good progress this season. But do you think we'll keep going on about the Russell Mercedes move, but do you think Russell's now he's outperforming the Williams and he can't go any higher than he currently is with Williams?
No, I think the wet helps the Williams, and it levels the playing field a bit more. But Russell's his driving this season has been on another level.
And do you think the McLaren car is better suited for the wet weather?
I'm not sure really. I think the McLaren, because they qualified well in Monza, which was mainly engine dependent. Here, would you say that's engine dependent? Well, it's a couple of long straights, a long left-hander, and loads of 90-degree right angles.
Well, I think especially for Williams, the reason Russell will go on to the race was in P3 for so long was he had the pace down the straights.
He was a
with the Mercedes
missile
engine.
down the straights. No one could get near him, and
No.
he didn't have DRS. And it was who was it that was behind him? Stroll, I believe it was Stroll in the first part of the race.
Yes.
He couldn't get anywhere near him, and
No.
that's also a Mercedes-powered car.
Yeah. So
Very interesting.
it was impressive from him. We'll go on to the race now, and there's a couple of interesting tactics going on before the start of the race. You had, obviously Max Verstappen took the multiple engine penalties, started last in the grid. Leclerc took some, Giovinazzi took some, Latifi took some. Obviously then Bottas decided to take a new engine because for some reason Mercedes thought that was a good idea. Don't think it's got anything to do with the fact that they've tried to cover off Verstappen whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean that's Bottas and his collection of new engines,
Yes.
as he put on his Instagram
Yes.
himself.
I don't think he was too happy with that decision.
No, I think Bottas knows that. Obviously, he's got the multi-year deal with Alfa Romeo in the coming seasons. I think he knows he's second fiddle, and he's going to be used to just try and position Hamilton in the best place to win the championship.
And what do you make of Verstappen? The way he always had the free place penalty from Monza for the Hamilton crash.
Yep.
There was chat about him potentially starting further up the grid with engine penalties. Do you think he should have been allowed to take the engine penalty with the free place grid drop, or do you think that free place grid drop purely for a collision should be carried over to the next race where he's not taking any other penalties?
Well, at the end of the day, the three-place grid drop hasn't been served at all. He was at the back. He was going to be at the back anyway. So he's kind of dodged a three-place grid drop, which I can't really understand. So that just means now it's a precedent set.
Yeah.
Precedent set. We've said that a lot this season.
We have, yes, especially with Red Bull.
Yeah, and I think it's a matter of now. If you get 5 or 5, 10, 3, you get any grid drop, you just whack a new engine in and you're starting. You can kind of nullify it.
Do you think for teams it'll be worth, especially next season going forward, that if they don't start in the top 10, they'll just put a new engine to have it in the pool of engines in case something goes wrong?
Well, especially if you're a top running team and you, for some reason, don't get into Q3. If you're at a track where you can overtake, which isn't many this season because of the way the aero's worked out, I think it's a gamble it's a gamble worth taking because Max, he had 20. What's an engine? 23 place
There was
grid penalties.
There was 5 places for each component, and there was plenty.
Yeah, so he should have been starting in Moscow,
yeah.
pretty much, and he got second, which luckily the rain saved his bacon a bit towards the end of the race.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think the whole penalty situation is getting a bit weird because it kind of everyone's bending the rules. I mean that is Formula One.
Yeah.
And that's why they're the highest echelon of motorsport, because everyone bends the rules to gain whatever advantage they can find.
But for younger drivers coming through, they've now seen someone, and whether it was deliberate or not, at Monza, took another driver out, your main championship rival.
Whole different kettle of fish, that.
Yeah, you got a you got a 3-place grid penalty, but you just dropped the back of the grid and you're still able to come up to second. Do you think that potentially it may just cause drivers being a little bit more aggressive and taking more risks that could ultimately end up in a very serious crash?
I don't think you're going to see, especially younger drivers coming through, and I think the underlying respect is there. It has to be, because at the end of the day, if someone does something silly to you at 180 miles an hour, you're going to have a very nasty crash. So the respect has to be there, and I think the respect is still there. I don't think you should be able to stack the penalties, and I think if you are penalised for a crash, you should be penalised for the crash. You shouldn't be able to just take it on with the engine penalties. But I don't think we're going to see a rise in younger drivers making rash moves. The Formula 2 this year has been rather entertaining, and so has the Formula 3, to be fair.
Yeah, it has.
Which, when we started the season, we thought, it's going to be a bit naff this year. But it's actually been a really good season.
It has, because a lot of the Formula 2 grid is primarily made up of drivers who were promoted from Formula 3 and maybe have another season to really develop to go on to be title contenders. Now, Oscar Piastri is obviously the exception for that, but a bit of news that did come out over the past week or two is that Formula 2 and Formula 3 going back to the original format.
Correct decision.
Yeah, just I was going to ask you, do you think that's the correct decision?
100%.
And do you think it will help, even for the Formula 3 drivers, even for Formula 2 teams, to see them around the paddock? Do you think that will help them just push it a little bit harder to try to get that move up next season?
Well, that was kind of the idea, is F1 being the big ticket event, and then you've got the F3 and the F2 there to support them. I don't really understand this new Formula 2 format. Yes, it's got them more races, but has it improved the overall quality of the package for the weekend?
Not when you have 2-month gaps between races.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. Like, the Formula 2 raced in Monza and Sochi.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to be seen again for...
To Austin?
Yeah, till Austin. And what's that, a month away?
And that race is probably not even going to happen.
Well, it's on the edge.
So then they go to Abu Dhabi, final race of the season.
Yeah, I don't think... I'm happy they've U-turned.
Yeah. And
they've gone back to the old format, because to me the old format didn't really need changing. But I thought I'm happy to see it back to everything being on the same weekend.
It'll be interesting to see what they do then with the W Series, because obviously Silverstone is one of the big highlights of the year, and they usually have as many series as they can. If they have Formula 1, Formula 2, Formula 3 and W Series along with Porsches or Masters Endurance, that's going to be a bumper card for that day, or that weekend.
Not being funny, the prices for Silverstone are extortionate for next year.
Even higher, I would think it's about £200 general admission alone.
Which, if you're paying that much, there should be something on the track.
Yeah, at all times.
Pretty much all the time.
Yeah. It's like Silverstone Classic, there was always something on, and tickets were expensive, but they weren't that expensive. So we'll go back to the race and
gone down a rabbit hole again.
Yes, we usually do this. Lap 1, a certain Fernando Alonso decided he would take a nice wee shortcut. Do you think he should have got a penalty for that, or was he totally within his rights, because he did go through the chicane, but he had to go through?
Well, the interesting thing was, you saw the commentators mentioned it. He did it on the formation lap twice.
Yeah.
So he knew exactly what he was doing, and Fernando's a wily old fox. He knew what he was doing, and he knew how to pull it off. To me, the reason he didn't get a penalty was because the cars he overtook off the track, he then let back through in turn 3.
I think it was Stroll. You can see Stroll getting past him quite easily again.
So he's let them back through, which I then think is why he's avoided the penalty. But in taking the shortcut, he's not only freed up the room around him, he then has more racing room when he's back on the track and letting other people through. I thought it was quite a smart move.
Do you think you could see people, especially in Monza and Monaco, just shortcutting everywhere to gain time if the precedent, as we keep saying this word, for the precedent set throughout the season? Do you think it could happen?
I don't think so. I think because Alonso gave the positions back, the stewards saw he didn't gain an advantage, and we know there's always that leniency for the first lap. There's always that cushion of, if it's the first lap, we're not gonna be as harsh. But I don't think we'll see a sudden rise in corner cutting and all that kind of stuff. But then the track allows it.
Yeah.
And which race was it where? What was it earlier on in the season where it was just, if you got it wrong, it was gravel?
Well, Zandvoort was like that.
Yes, Zandvoort, that was the one. You didn't see any corner cutting there
No.
because you couldn't,
Yeah.
because it's a sand dune. And if you either cut the corner or run wide to gain an advantage, you're going straight into the kitty litter. And it slows the cars down.
What do you make of Bottas's performance, especially in the first few laps? Because Mercedes called it a tactical power unit change, but we'll go back to this point. Tactical in the sense of it just gives them another engine to use, but I think reading between the lines, there was a bit more of potentially trying to block off Verstappen.
Which lasted well.
Yeah, 6 laps.
Yep.
Do you think that was him sort of saying to Mercedes, and I know you already said about the contract, but he doesn't really care anymore. He's just running his own race and not really playing too much of the team game?
It's an interesting one because I think had he been up there, he genuinely would have been a contender for the race win because he's rapid round Sochi. Well, he wasn't this weekend because
usually is
being stuck in traffic.
Yeah,
but there just didn't seem to be any fight there at all. It was just he kind of half opened the door for him, popped the kettle on, hung his jacket up, and there he was. He'd gone through. But Max was pushing in those early few laps. He was cutting through that field very quickly.
And then obviously the rain came down the last few laps that completely changed the outlook of the race because Norris was miles ahead of everyone else at one point.
Yeah.
He looked so comfortable. Do you think that was just a little bit of inexperience from both McLaren and Norris? Obviously McLaren, we know they're a very successful team, but it's been a long time since they've been fighting for race wins. Do you think there's that little bit of inexperience played a big factor in the reason Norris he finished, was a P7 he finished in the end up?
It's what I mentioned to you earlier on. It's throughout that whole race, McLaren were focusing solely on themselves, and that's why they were doing so well. All of a sudden, those last 6-7 laps, it was, what's Hamilton going to do? What's Hamilton going to do? Why are we've got to respond. We've got to do that. I mean, I take nothing away. It is mega seeing McLaren back up there, and they've got 2 incredible drivers, arguably the strongest driver lineup on the grid. But yeah, it was heart-wrenching to see Norris just slip off and slide off the track.
And Daniel Ricciardo, as you said, McLaren have one of the best driver lineups in the grid. Do you think Daniel Ricciardo's really come into his own the past few races?
Yeah. No, I really do. I think Monza saved his season. I don't know if you agree.
Yeah, I know. I think it did. It's given that confidence boost, and he looks like a driver who can fight for podiums and race wins again if he's given the car. And we said this nearly every podcast. We don't know what's going to happen next season. Big regulation change, but if the current cars were carried on into next season, you could definitely see McLaren picking up an odd race one.
I think McLaren are going to be up there anyway next year. They've got a strong engine, strong aero, 2 great drivers, excellent team management. It's a good package. It's a very solid package.
I'm going to put you on the spot again. Is there any team that's not really up there this season, so your Red Bull, Mercedes, McLaren, Ferrari to an extent, that will really potentially be a title contender next year? If you could choose one, who do you think it would most likely be?
What, surprise contender?
Yeah.
Not of the top 4?
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love to say Aston Martin, because obviously they've signed Martin Whitmarsh this week.
Yeah.
But I can't see it happening.
Might be too late in this season for him to really have an impact.
Yeah. Well, I think he'll be brought in for the development of next year's car. But they just need to stop Stroll and Vettel hitting each other.
Yeah. Do you think part of the struggles of Aston Martin having this year? Obviously, they're building a new their new headquarters up at Silverstone, and I was up there the other day, and you can see they're making plenty of work around it already, and it's going to be a very impressive facility. But do you think that maybe they're focusing more on next season than this season, especially with the car they had last year? Do you think that the way Aston Martin have sort of, you could say, almost gone downhill from the racing point last year to Aston Martin this year, it just shows the development of the teams around them, that next year, if Aston Martin are willing to sacrifice this year, that they could be right up there next year?
I think so, and I think we're seeing a lot of teams already sacrificing this year for next year. Aston Martin, I don't know. I'm not going to lie, I expected them to be the 4th quickest team this year.
Yeah, I did as well.
After the performance of the Racing Points last year. They were, I think, to me, they are not the biggest shock, but they're the most...
Biggest disappointment for me.
Yeah, definitely, because they had the possibility to be right up there, and for some reason it's just not quite clicked this year.
Yeah, I think Aston Martin next year they will be up there, because not up there in terms of championship contending, but I definitely think Vettel will pick up a podium or two. If the grid's as close as we hope it will be, anything's possible. We've already seen Vettel on the podium this year. I'm just looking here at the lap times from the end of the race and how big a difference it was, because on lap 46 Hamilton did a 1 minute 33, but then the next lap was a 1:42, then 1:54. Shows you how quickly that rain came down.
Yeah, it just bucketed it down. Because there was a distinct... I can remember watching it, and there was a distinct point where you're like, oh, it's too dry. It's too dry. The last sector's bone dry. Top end of the track is wet. It's the right call. You need to stay on slicks. Within 2 laps, it was pushing full wet conditions. And then by the end of the race, the final sector was nearly dry again.
Yeah, Norris pitted on lap 51. Before that, his lap 50 was a 1:57, where Hamilton was on a 2 minute 6 on inters. So Norris probably just done the lap extra that he could.
Yeah,
although
that's
Hamilton
the one that hurt him.
Then Hamilton was coming out of the pits, so he would have been a bit slower.
Mm-hmm.
But then Norris's lap 51, 3 minutes 11.
Yeah.
It's one of the slowest lap times I've ever seen in Formula One car.
Yeah, that was just heart-wrenching to watch. It really was. And I think it's all well and good saying this with hindsight, but obviously the motto is, to finish first you must finish.
Mm-hmm.
And F1's it's not always been about being the first to the line. It's being the quickest to get to the line.
Yeah.
And I think once Hamilton had pitted, everyone was on inters. Norris should have come in. We saw the team ask, didn't we? We saw the team ask.
Yeah.
Right, Norris, Lando, do you think it's good for inters? He was like, no, I'm staying on the slicks.
And he was very angry.
Yeah, he was very firm in the choice of, no, I'm staying on these slicks.
Yeah.
And I think once everyone had pitted, it's down to minimising the risk. And as we always say, I'm not a race strategist.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not a racer.
But we would like to be. If any Formula One teams want us to do the race strategy, we will. You may finish last, but that's not down to us, it's down to the car.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. But I think after Hamilton had stopped, McLaren should have brought Norris in.
Yeah.
Just to cover off the conditions, because I reckon he could have he maybe could have kept the win. Yeah. It would have been close, but
if him and Hamilton pitted at the same time, Norris, it depends who was quicker in the pit stops.
But that's the benefit Hamilton has. He can do whatever Norris doesn't.
Yeah. I think Norris will learn an awful lot from this.
Yeah, I think this to Norris will be what Beijing 2007 was to Lewis.
Yeah.
He will learn, because let's not forget, Beijing 2007, Hamilton stayed on slick tyres too long, came into the pit, slid off, stuck in the gravel, cost him the championship. This will hurt Norris just as much, and I think this will teach him just as much as well.
Yeah, and I think Norris was thinking, I could be the hero here. Thinking the stories of me running around with a track that's starting to flood with the rain on slick tyres, it would look very cool. That at the end of the day, he's a racing driver, and he has to win a race when he's out in the lead.
Yeah.
And I think he will be gutted, and I think
he definitely was gutted. You saw it in the post-race interviews. And to me, it was the bit where, I think it was a Sky interview, where he said, I made the call to stay on slicks. Yeah. And he started to tear up a bit. Because I think at that point he knew it was majoritively his decision. But these things are split-second decisions. Yeah. You go 1 lap too early, you burn up your inters, you're done. Mm-hmm. You go 1 lap too late, you're 4-minute lap time.
Yeah.
The gap between these, especially with these wider Pirellis, the gap between dry and wet is about 30 seconds in the right weather conditions, and it's such a hard margin to walk.
And Carlos Sainz got onto the podium to actually pick up his trophy, and we can't make the Ferrari on the podium joke this week because of the champagne or the sparkling wine or whatever it is, because they actually were.
And I think they were there on merit.
Yeah.
Sainz had a solid race.
He did, and he was in contention for the win at one stage.
The middle bit got a bit Ferrari, classic Ferrari. But towards the end, I thought Ferrari nailed it. Got the pace down, got everything. Yeah, they deserved that. They deserved the podium.
And it's great to see another, a team like Ferrari to be on the podium. Whenever you don't have a Hamilton, Verstappen, Bottas podium, it's always nice to see.
It's always a nice surprise.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's got to the point where we've had that many this season that...
That's the record now, isn't it? Those three hold the record for the most consecutive appearances on the podium.
Yeah, them three
for the same three drivers.
It's so confusing. Well, no, it's not confusing. It's great to see the different teams, because who's had podiums this season? You've Mercedes, Red Bull, McLaren, Ferrari,
Alpine,
Aston Martin.
Yep.
Williams, technically.
No.
So that means...
Have we had what? So who hasn't been on? It's
Alfa Romeo.
And Haas.
AlphaTauri were on it. The Gasly got one. Or was that last season?
That was last.
Gasly won Monza last year. I think he was on the podium this year.
Well, either way, if it's not AlphaTauri, 7, that's mad. I can't remember the last time we saw that.
No.
It's definitely pushing 2012.
It's just a shame that next season, big regulation change, and we'll see one team probably lead off.
I think it needs to happen, though, because you can't overtake in these cars.
Yeah.
The aero changes for this year haven't really worked.
They've
not really worked. And you see in the drivers, for Sochi to generate the most overtakes, was it
94?
94?
94, 97, but only 24 were shown in the live broadcast.
Yeah, it was pretty woeful.
Yeah. Gasly did get a podium in Azerbaijan.
Of course he did. So that's 8 then?
Yep.
God, that's mad. That's 2012 levels.
It is.
But the interesting point with this season, when you have these monotone races that are really usually a bit boring. You've got Barcelona, great strategy battle.
Yep.
Monaco, again, good strategy battle. Paul Ricard was arguably...
It was entertaining for
It
once.
was entertaining.
As much as it was nice.
I mean, it'd be fitting if it was the last year it's there.
Yeah.
Which are the rumours.
Yes.
Because apparently the access issues.
Mm-hmm.
Which could see it replaced by Imola.
Mm-hmm. Be great to
like to see that. Would like to go there.
Permanent fixture would be great.
And then Sochi with a belter. Yeah, it was grand. What a season we're having.
Yeah, it's been brilliant. And 2 points between Hamilton and Verstappen. We don't really know which way it's going to go.
I put the prediction down at the start of the season, which way I think it's going to go.
Yeah, but you also said Verstappen's not going to be a world champion.
That's my prediction. There you go.
Yeah.
I'm sticking with Lewis.
At least you're not alone in that. Will, FP1, who's still doing incredible things on YouTube, he also said that in the podcast, the original Apex Motorsport podcast, episode 4 I think it was. You can scroll back to the channel and see that. But predictions time, they haven't gone too well. I think the
Yeah,
last...
it kind of proves we don't really tend to know what we're talking about.
No, we don't. And that's why we do a podcast after the race to discuss what happened, so we actually have something to cover. I'm not sure if this is the correct piece of paper. I think it is. And if the scores are the same as last time, it's currently 19.5 points to you and Ryan and 16 to me. Didn't go too well in the last race. For pole position, I had Lewis Hamilton, you had Valtteri Bottas, none of us had Lando. Race 1, I had Lewis Hamilton, so thank you, Lando. I'm taking that point for spinning off. Valtteri Bottas, you had down for race 1?
Yep.
Didn't happen.
Did he score points?
He did. He finished 5th.
Oh yeah, he did, didn't he?
Which was very impressive for Bottas, given he was nowhere at one stage.
It just proves though that rain saved many people's bacons.
Yeah. You didn't get any points for the rest of your podium, but you will be happy with who you put down. You put Hamilton and Norris. So before the rain.
Hey, if we'd have finished 4 laps earlier, a good accompaniment of points there. Yeah. But it didn't. So
I put Charles. Voice going already. Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly.
Yeah, I did say that was a brave one.
Yeah, I usually do these brave predictions.
Hey, but the way I see it, if we keep predicting pretty average races, like Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen podiums, it won't happen because we won't get points and we will provide a service to everyone of a great race.
Exactly.
There we go.
Yeah. Fastest lap, I had Pierre Gasly. You had Max Verstappen, but Norris got the point.
Yep.
Norris also got reprimand for cutting into the pit lane and going out the line back in. I think that was sort of a given. There's nothing he could do about that.
I think that the line the stewards used were given the conditions and the minimum risk that other drivers faced, that they didn't feel it was necessary to time penalty him. I mean, at that point, it would have been like kicking a puppy.
Yeah.
But no, I agree with that.
And 3 British drivers in the top 10, all points scores. Great to see. For my wildcard prediction, if Leclerc and Gasly in the podium wasn't a wildcard enough, I put Yuki Tsunoda to get into Q3 and George Russell P7. Yeah, it didn't happen.
Russell overperformed in qualifying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Madness.
And you put down that neither Haas car would crash. I don't think it happened. There was about 70 overtakes that we didn't see, so there could have been.
There's a high chance it might have happened.
But Schumacher did retire about halfway through, about 10 seconds after I said, "Oh, no one's actually retired yet."
It was a classic Murrayism.
Yeah.
It was, we've still got 20 drivers.
Oh.
Shows footage of them pushing Mick into the garage.
Yep. Right. Prediction time for the Turkish Grand Prix. Is that correct? Turkish?
Yes, Turkey, 2 weeks' time.
Yeah, so long away.
It's too long.
Far
too long.
Especially when we've had a triple header. We've had 2 weeks, now another 2 weeks.
And not only that, we might get a dry Turkey this year. Turn 8. Is it turn 7? Flat?
Is it turn 11? Which one's is that?
The really long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a brilliant corner.
Great corner. We didn't get to see that flat last year, did we?
No, I don't think so.
Because it was the first session was a really green track, and then after that it was very, very wet.
And of course, Hamilton won his title in Turkey last year.
He did.
He did. So,
I can't see that happening this year.
No.
Unless
unless Red Bull get disqualified, I think that's the only way it's possible.
Yeah, but I think this is very, very reaching now.
Yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. Right. Prediction time. Pole position, Turkish Grand Prix.
Lewis Hamilton.
Okay.
He's just on form in Turkey. After last year's performance, he was on point.
I'm going to go Daniel Ricciardo.
Oh, hello.
Yeah, I'm just going to go crazy predictions. You go for the sensible ones.
And then we'll cover... yeah, but that means we give you points in the competition. Either way, it should be interesting.
Yeah. Grand Prix winner.
I'm going to say... I mean, part of me wants to say Max Verstappen.
final answer.
Yeah, go on.
I'm going to go Charles Leclerc.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah, that might as well just be bold, be brave. Rest of the podium, so second and third.
Hamilton. I reckon Hamilton will take his engine penalty
Okay.
in Turkey. Maybe it will be Turkey or Austin.
So,
And
well, if he's taking the agent penalty, if he tops qualifying, we'll give you the pole point.
good. That's grand.
Will be nice. We can debate it out at the end of the season.
Yeah,
of course.
this will be when there's that big argument at the end of the season when
like,
the
whether or not the AlphaTauri's impressed because they got disqualified from one of the races or not. It's just third place.
Norris.
I have the exact same written down.
Have you actually?
Yeah. So we equal out points there.
Yeah.
Fastest lap.
Ricardo.
Okay. I'm gonna go. Ooh, Sergio Perez. Right, wild card. I mean, mine's are all wild card predictions. But
Yeah, your whole rosters there is a bit of a wild card.
yeah.
I don't know. What do you reckon yours is? What are you going to go for?
Schumacher to score points.
Crikey. That's very wild. That's
It is.
extremely wild.
I know.
I'm going to go for... I don't know. I think we've covered most of them this year.
Yeah.
I'm going to say Mazepin to be within 20 seconds of his teammate at the end of the race.
Who will be in the points?
Yeah. Oh, God. I think, yeah, we've completely gone off. Oh, let's go for it. Why
Yeah.
not?
Yeah, well, leaves the predictions there, and we'll realise that well, actually, we have to update the scores because I got one the last time, you got one, so it's 17 to me and 20.5 to you, Ryan. We need to get you a half point somewhere. If at the free podium finishers this weekend were given an extra half a point, it would have been nicely rounded up.
It would be nice.
It would.
That 0.5 is going to be there all season,
Yes,
and it's going to be annoying.
it's very annoying to see. But I think we're going to end this podcast here.
Yeah, I think we've covered most of it.
Any final thoughts before Turkey?
No, I'm just looking forward to seeing it, and I'm just loving this season. It's
Yes.
just fantastic.
It's been a brilliant season, and with a great championship battle with so many twists and turns still to come. So yeah, so I said that's going to bring the end of this podcast. Obviously this podcast goes out YouTube, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, all usual streaming platforms. So yeah, we'll check out Craig's links. I'll leave them in the description below. He's a brilliant photography gallery up there.
Too kind.
Yes,
Far too
I
kind.
know. Of course, there's a British GT coverage up there on the Apex Motorsport. that
Out
he
and
does
Park
well.
photos coming up soon.
Yep, and a good few photos from Goodwood as well this year. So yeah,
Yep.
make sure you check all them out. As I said, the links will be in the description below. So yeah, we hope you all enjoyed this podcast, and you'll join us for the Turkish Grand Prix. Goodbye.
Goodbye.